The United States is currently surging troops and naval assets into the Middle East. It is a move that runs counter to public expectations of a victory declaration and a total withdrawal from the region. This behavior follows a pattern often seen in empires entering a period of decline. It is defined by a specific combination of hubris and desperation, a state where leadership is too arrogant to accept the possibility of defeat, yet so desperate for a knockout punch that they continue to escalate. Currently, the American position in the Middle East offers no path to a conventional military victory, yet any attempt at a retreat risks triggering a wider collapse of regional influence. Looking at the board, there are only two distinct paths available to the administration. Option A involves a full retreat, while Option B calls for a military escalation. The logic of these two paths suggests that neither can achieve its stated geopolitical goals. This leaves a central question regarding the actual objective of the current military buildup. If the U.S. chooses Option A and withdraws, Iran is likely to demand massive financial reparations from the Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC. They would use the threat of further attacks on oil infrastructure and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz to enforce these demands. In this scenario, the security guarantee that underpins the petrodollar agreement effectively vanishes. $4 trillion in sovereign wealth funds, which previously flowed into the United States, would be redirected to Iran to rebuild their economy and military infrastructure. This abandonment would signal to other regional allies, like Japan and South Korea, that American security guarantees are no longer reliable. Their likely response is rapid, independent remilitarization. As these nations move away from their dependence on Washington, they would likely stop purchasing U.S. treasuries. This removes the primary foreign buyers of the U.S. dollar, potentially causing its value to drop sharply. With $40 trillion in national debt, this loss of currency status would trigger a domestic economic crisis. While the U.S. faces financial depression, Russia and Iran would move to occupy the power vacuum in Europe and the Middle East. A retreat from the region does not produce stability. Instead, it leads to a rapid unwinding of the economic structures that support the American empire. The alternative is Option B, escalation. This path begins with the deployment of a 2,000-troop Marine Expeditionary Force, a unit specializing in amphibious landings. The tactical goal is to secure Karg Island, Iran's primary economic lifeline and oil terminal. By controlling this point, the administration hopes to force Iran into a face-saving negotiation. Taking the island exposes Marines to coastal artillery. Securing the coastline then exposes them to attacks from the Zagros Mountains. This mission creep, securing mountain ranges against underground missile facilities, would require at least 100,000 troops. This trajectory mirrors the 1965 deployment to Da Nang, Vietnam. What began as 3,500 soldiers securing an airbase grew to 500,000 troops within 5 years as the conflict's logic took hold. Escalation creates a momentum that is difficult to halt. Rather than securing a quick victory, it leads toward a protracted, large-scale ground war. Both geopolitical options lead to outcomes that appear catastrophic for the country's long-term stability. This suggests the administration's strategy is not being driven by a choice between two national interests. To understand why the administration is doubling down on escalation, we have to look at the personal situation of the leadership. The first term of this administration was marked by significant legal challenges, including the raid on Mar-a-Lago and court cases that threatened total bankruptcy. Opponents have stated that if they return to power, they intend to pursue further legal action against the leadership and their family. In this context, staying in power is a matter of personal survival. A spiraling overseas conflict provides a justification for declaring a national emergency and deploying the National Guard to handle resulting domestic unrest. The massive scale of a war in the Zagros Mountains would eventually require more manpower than the volunteer force can provide. This logic leads directly to a national draft. There is a recent precedent for this. During the war in Ukraine, the government suspended the constitution and postponed elections. During a visit to the White House, when President Zelensky confirmed this was possible, the response from the administration was, "You like this, don't you?" The current military buildup suggests a survival decision. Faced with the choice between a failed empire and a personal threat of prison, the administration appears willing to risk the draft and a protracted conflict to ensure they remain in power.